Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm Maureen Reedy, the President and CEO of the Paley Center for Media, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to a very important and timely conversation with Shari Redstone and Ronald S. Lauder, which is part of our ongoing effort to examine media's powerful shaping influence and unique ability to raise awareness around the growing crisis of anti-Semitism. This event and all of the programs in our PaleyImpact series on the role of media in combating anti-Semitism is designed to shatter stereotypes, break down barriers, educate audiences, and bring people together. As I look out in the audience tonight, I'd just like to take a moment to welcome a very few special guests that are here with us this evening. Our esteemed chairman of the board, Frank Bennick Jr., and his remarkable wife, Mary Lake Bennick, Mary Lake Poland, are here with us this evening. And I'd like to just share that Mr. Bennick is currently serving in his 32nd year as chairman of the board of the Paley Center for Media, the only one to have ever held that role other than Bill Paley himself. So 32 years. I also like to give a warm, heartfelt welcome to our Paley trustees that are here with us this evening. Jonathan Miller is here, and of course, Shari Redstone. And to the members of the board of the William S. Paley Foundation that are here with us this evening, Pat Gallagher and Jackie Scalisi. Thank you so much. And we welcome all of our patrons, our members, our distinguished guests that are joining us tonight for this most important program. Tonight's program is made possible by the Blanche and Irving Laurie Foundation, whom we sincerely thank for their generous support, and we are grateful to have trustee Harvey Rich here with us this evening. Hi, Harvey. Thank you so much. Never before has Paley's mission been more vital, as media has been the undisputed connector to a nation in these unprecedented times. Paley is uniquely positioned to meet this moment and to shine a light on how media in all its forms can educate, inform, and make an impact on this vitally important issue through conversations led by such influential figures like we have here tonight. We are honored to bring together two of the most highly regarded individuals in business and culture today. Shari Redstone, chair of the board of directors of Paramount Global, and Ronald S. Lauder, president of the World Jewish Congress. They are here tonight to discuss the alarming rise in anti-Semitism, especially as current events unfold in Israel and Gaza. Tonight's conversation will explore how prominent leaders like our distinguished guests should address this disturbing trend, the challenges of confronting hate during difficult times, the strategies to educate and empower the younger generation against this enduring prejudice, and what is the role of media in examining, raising, and covering these issues. I am certain that tonight's discussion will not only be thought-provoking, but will leave a lasting impression and inspire all of us. We are so grateful to Shari and Ronald for being with us this evening. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed moderator for this evening, Paula Zahn. Yes. Now, wait 1 second. Paula is a 10-time Emmy Award-winning journalist who is the executive producer and host of Investigation Discoveries On the Case with Paula Zahn, a weekly investigative crime series. She is also the host of 13's weekly arts and culture multi-platform showcase, NYC Arts. And Paula is a dear friend of the Paley Center, and it is always an honor to welcome her back to our stage. I now ask you all to join me in welcoming Paula Zahn.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen, for that very generous introduction. It is always great to be back in your home, the Paley Museum. I understand you probably spend 20 hours a day here. It is a second home to you. What an honor and privilege it is to be with you here tonight to talk about many of the critical issues that Maureen just raised. Tonight, we are going to be focusing our discussion on three pivotal areas: the concerning surge in anti-Semitism amidst current events, Secondly, an examination of the media coverage concerning anti-Semitism and its intersection with the ongoing war in Gaza. And finally, how do we effectively educate the next generation about hate and prejudice? Let's meet our esteemed panelists now. Ronald S. Lauder, as Maureen mentioned. You know him as an international businessman, diplomat, public servant, and president of the World Jewish Congress since 2007. There's more coming. As president, he you can sit and get comfortable. This is going to go on for a long time. As president, he regularly meets with heads of countries, diplomats, and religious leaders as representatives of Jewish communities in 100 countries around the world. Ronald has been deeply committed to his Jewish heritage throughout his adult life, and we're going to come to find out actually prior to his adult life tonight, working to help the Jewish community worldwide through a wide range of philanthropic and professional endeavors. He established the Ronald S. Lauder Foundation, which runs 20 Jewish schools, kindergartens, and summer camps throughout 15 countries and Central and Eastern Europe. Now we get to give you another round of applause. Shari Redstone, as Maureen mentioned, is the chair of the board of directors of Paramount Global, the global media and entertainment company that creates premium content and experiences for audiences worldwide across its many iconic networks, studios, and streaming services. Shari also serves as chair, CEO, and president of National Amusements, a world leader in the motion picture industry, and is co-founder and managing partner of Advanced Capital, a venture capital firm investing in media, technology, and Web3 startups. In addition, when she has any spare time at all, she is working with educational leaders and other highly experienced partners. She is creating programs that teach children, teens, and others about the importance of diversity, the scourge of hate, and the role of civics in our society to address the world's most pressing issues. Please welcome Shari Redstone. It is so good to be here with both of you. There has been an alarming increase in anti-Semitism since the attack of October 7th. How concerned are you by this? How nervous does this make you?
It makes me very nervous, and I'm very concerned. I think that anti-Semitism has existed for a really long time. It's often referred to as the world's oldest form of hate, but I think it was under the radar. And I think it was something that was more theoretical, and right now it's very personal to all of us. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every decision we make, unfortunately right now, is having to take into account the anti-Semitism that exists. When we make decisions about where we go on vacation, where are our kids going to go to school, where are they going to go to camp, what restaurant can we go to where we feel safe? It's surrounding us at every moment, and it's an issue I think we really need to address head on.
Does it feel different to you now than it did a year ago, a year and a half ago?
It absolutely feels different because before it was something, I've been seeing a rise in anti-Semitism for many years. I started programs several years ago working with kids and working with young adults. I knew anti-Semitism was there, but it never hit me in the heart. It never hit me that I had to worry about my own security, the security for my family. And it's every minute of every day something that we need to deal with. And that's something I never thought. You know, I often say, who could have imagined what took place on October 7th? Who could have imagined the horrors? And yet somehow you're not surprised, but when you feel it and you see it and you experience it, it changes you forever.
Ronald, are you equally shaken?
Frankly, not. I grew up in New York, as an assimilated Jew. I was a Jew in name only. And after spending in the cosmetic business, spending 3.5 years in the Pentagon, I was asked by President Reagan to go to Austria as ambassador. And I arrived there because it's a city I knew very, very well. I felt it's a wonderful place to be. At that time, there was a man running for president named Kurt Waldheim. Kurt Waldheim was Secretary General of the UN, and it's found out that he wasn't simply a law student. He was an intelligence officer with the Nazi army. And he was running for president. And I heard him speak, and he said, running for president, I did nothing wrong that your brothers, your uncles, your friends, your family did during the war. What he was saying is, we're all guilty of being Nazis. I realized that I was ambassador, American ambassador in Austria during a time that the whole country would be voting for a Nazi as president. And Austria, as many people know, was not the first victim. It was a country very, very pro-Nazi. And all of a sudden, I knew that I was surrounded by people who were voting, and he became president. And I didn't go to his inauguration because I couldn't stand to be with him. It was the State Department didn't love me for that. What happened from that point on, every day was anti-Semitism around me. I became not the American ambassador, I became the American Jewish ambassador. And I fought it, and I started to stand up to it. It made me become Jewish. Nothing is more important than to making someone Jewish than to be attacked by their Judaism. So that when I see things happening here, it's very similar to what I saw in Austria. Also, I became much more sensitive to anti-Semitism, and I realized that below the surface there was great anti-Semitism in America. It didn't come from Americans. It came from people coming into America, and it also came from people who were very, very much part of the liberal organizations that fought the Vietnam War and then went on to become teachers. And then there was the question of many, many teachers coming from other countries who were coming there. So I saw the beginning of it in, I think it's 2004, and it grew and grew and grew. And it was starting to happen all over. We kept watching. We wanted to tell people what was happening. No one believed us. So again, it wasn't a shock to me. What was a shock to me is how well organized they were. Because on October 8th, one day after the massacre, there was huge demonstrations all over the United States. It had been planned beforehand. They knew there was going to be something, and it was all planned. It's not possible to happen spontaneously.
So, Ronald, do you see the surge that
sorry
we're
for
witnessing?
the long story, but...
No, it's an important story. But do you see the surge we're witnessing more as a reflection of inherent hatred of Jews and or the reaction or some might describe contempt for the ongoing war in Gaza? Can you separate the two?
They're all part of the same subject, but it's not inherent. It's an inherent hatred of Jews that were taught to them as children. What we found is that the teaching of anti-Semitism started in the kindergarten and went right through high school. We didn't see it because many of us living in New York or a different city didn't see it, and many people went to private schools and didn't see it. It was inherent all throughout the country. And we saw at the World Jewish Congress, but we had a question. How do we ring the bell? And we knew it was happening, and we saw it happening.
And how do you interpret the really shocking numbers?
Well, I want to say, because you started off by asking him, was he surprised? I was not surprised. And that was when I said, you know, you looked at the horrors that took place and you think, how could this be? You could imagine it. But did it change my life? Absolutely. But it wasn't a surprise because, like Ronald, I agree that there is this hatred of Jews that has existed for a very, very long time. And I think what happened on October 7th made it almost okay. And, you know, one of the things I always talk about is, you know, I think it's no coincidence that right now we're living in a time where our democracy is being challenged and our democratic institutions are being challenged. We've lost the ability to have civil discourse. We've lost the ability to have checks and balances within our government. We've lost accountability for actions that take place. And I think when you begin to see that decline in our democratic institutions, it's no question that you're going to start to see a rise in hate crimes and a rise in anti-Semitism, because it's the same thing. Who is saying no? Who is being held accountable? Where is there a system of checks and balances? And, you know, they always say that anti-Semitism is like the canary in the mine, and that when anti-Semitism is on the rise, democratic decay will certainly follow. And when you see this, it's not just about the Jews. You know, I did a program recently, which was a film impact series. And the first thing movie we screened was a movie called From Swastika to Jim Crow. And it talked about how when the Jews came over to this country after World War II, the universities would not accept these Jewish refugees who came over here. So who accepted them? The HBCUs. They went down, the Christian universities, the black universities. History repeats itself. It's happening over and over again. So I think this issue, it's not just about anti-Semitism. It's about hate. And if they come for one group, they're ultimately going to come for all groups. And I think we see this as a much bigger issue right now in our society and in our democracy. And I know we're going to talk about education and we're going to talk about universities, but this is not just a segmented issue that's affecting Jews. This is affecting all of us, and it's affecting our children, and it's about the world we're going to be leaving for our grandchildren.
And what impact do you see the war having on these young college students, many of whom have been interviewed, and some of them don't understand the Charter of Hamas. Some aren't educated at all about the history of Israel. How do you even go about tackling that big piece?
I'm going to give you two answers. I think all the war did, and it goes to what Ronald said too, anti-Semitism existed, hatred existed. It almost made it okay to hate. And I think that's part of what the whole rise is in anti-Semitism now. And in terms of the impact, I think what it says is never has it been more important than for there to be moral leadership in this country, whether it's coming from the government, whether it's coming from the universities, whether it's coming from organizations. I think the lack of moral leadership in this country is what's allowing so much of this hate to continue to exist. I do have hope, and I do think there's a way we can address this. But I think these times are really, really challenging, and we're at a critical time and a tipping point that if we don't address these issues, if we don't talk to young people about this, I don't know what direction it's going to go in. But can I just say one point on hope? I want to tell you two stories. One is, I started a program recently with 4-year-olds in the most diverse area of the city of Boston. And it was really to teach them to love before they learn to hate. And it was about introducing them to different cultures. And I have this model that I use for everything called family, food, and fun. And my whole idea is that with family, food, and fun, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. And as Jews, we know a lot about family, food, and fun. So I just want to tell you, so at Hanukkah, every program has books, and the books always go home. They do arts and crafts projects, and we have food. And we had a big Hanukkah dinner, and all of these diverse kids sang dreidel, 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 All their parents applauded. We talked about Hanukkah. I talked a lot about, what we're learning in school, but we talked about Kwanzaa. We talked about, and I'm forgetting the name of the Indian holiday that exists also. We talked about Christmas. They learned about all of these different cultures. And it didn't stop there. Because when these kids came back in January, their parents said, you should have heard our Christmas dinners. They had conversations where these family members learned about Hanukkah. They learned about traditions. They learned about potato latkes. Now we've got to go get the recipe and how to make potato latkes. But these kids love it. And when I was reading Curious George Loves Hanukkah to them in February, this little boy raised his hand. I thought he was going to cry, and I said, what's wrong, honey? He said, I lost my dreidel. I mean, if we can do this with 4-year-olds, if we can have programs that we have where we bring people together, and I think, and I don't want to keep talking, but obviously this is my life now. But there are so many opportunities that we have to bring people together from different backgrounds. It's very hard to hate people face to face. And when you see them, and when you have the opportunity, which is what universities are missing and so many of us are missing, to bring people together, to share what we have in common, and then I'm going to stop talking. But one thing I heard recently is that if you look at the genetics of everybody, 99-point-something% is the same. And yet look how our differences are dividing us.
I thank you. I think you've made some very powerful points about how important it is to teach young children about hate, but you also have to concede, when you look at the statistics today, there are some big challenges in educating the public. There was that one a poll by the ADL that suggested that 2/3 of their respondents between the ages of 18 and 39 were not aware that 6 million Jews lost their lives during the Holocaust. Additionally, 23% of the subset of the same respondents looked at the Holocaust as a myth. So Ronald, what is the challenge in tackling that ignorance?
Frankly, first of all, 4 out of 5 Americans support Israel. That's the Harvard opinion poll. Not Harvard College, but Harvard. We've lost an entire generation because they've been taught for the last 20 years to hate. And we can't change that. Yes, there are schools that are wonderful schools, and Shari was talking about young children. There's still Jewish children growing up and very happy. But by and large, we've lost a whole generation. And we don't know if we can make it back, because this generation is the 4th generation after the Holocaust. And remember, they have no connection to the Holocaust. Most of the people here, families who grew up after the Holocaust, and many of you were growing up with your parents telling you how bad it was and what happened. The fact is that we've lost this generation. And it's not been done just by chance. It's been done as a plot, a whole thing, going from the social media to the teaching. I learned recently about woke kindergarten. We learned that the wheels in the bus go round, round, round. They teach now the treads in the tank go round, round, round over Palestinians. That's what they learn. And there's a song. Those who sing from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, have no clue what river and what sea. But they've been taught that. And it's very hard to unteach them. And I don't know the answer. It's going to be very hard. It's not just teaching about the Holocaust. It's about teaching them what love is about and what hate is about. And I wish I can give a better answer to it. We do as much as we can with our own children and our own grandchildren, but it's very, very hard to go against major changes. And it only can work if the government plays a role. And one of the things, we have a Title VI that says any school has anti-Semitism. There are some like 208 schools that have possible great anti-Semitism. Title VI has been used now, number of times, 0. It has not been used because there is a fear of using it. I'm telling the truth, and this is things we fight every single day. There's a feeling that because of this trend, government is afraid to take a role. And it's not Republican or Democrats, it's government. And I'm concerned. And I'm not going to get into elections, but I can say that it's very difficult between the two extremes to find the majority of people are in the center. And it's very, very hard for them to do it. But I think unless people realize the danger we're facing as a country because of this, and anti-Semitism is just, as Shari says, it's the canary in the mind. And I fear that after this comes other religions, mainly the Catholic religion. And I remember when I wrote a piece, Who Will Stand Up for the Catholics in the Middle East? I was the only Jew writing this piece. At that time, Catholics made a percentage of people in the Middle East. Today, it's almost 0. Bethlehem, it used to have 70% Catholic, now has less than 10% or 5%. The only place in the Middle East where the number of Catholics are rising is Israel. And it's a danger. I'm watching what's happening in Africa today. And I'm invited to go to Central Africa. I don't know what there's no Jews in Central Africa, but there are 5 or 6 countries that are very pro-Israel. And their only comment to me is, we're pro-Israel and Israel doesn't recognize us. So I'm coming there at the World Jewish Congress, and we reach out to all, we're right now working in 100 countries. And it's very hard. Israel, who has, the Jews invented public relations. I spend more money on my suits than they do on public relations. The second thing is the foreign ministry. It's hard to find in Israel because at one time Israel was the only country in the world that didn't have a foreign minister, because it was the minister, it was the president, it was the prime minister and the foreign minister. In order for this to change, it has to be both the government working together and Israel working together with them, and the Christians working together.
Let's talk about the reality.
He gave me so much to talk about right now.
I hope you agree with me.
I don't know where to begin to talk about what you just said.
I'm about to leave the stage, so it's okay.
No. But first of all, hopefully, some of these cases now with Title VI that are in court, maybe we'll see a change. I don't depend on it, but I maybe we'll see a change. And I do believe we've lost the generation. But what I won't buy into is that I do have hope. And I can tell you, I'll give you a couple of examples
You
of what...
too, by the way. I have hope.
Okay, because I just want everybody to have, because I am here tonight because I have hope. Because I know that if we come together, if we realize the extent of this problem, and you and I agree, whether it's the Jews, the blacks, the Catholics, democracy, this world is struggling now, and it needs all of us to come together and to fight for what we need, for the world we want for our kids, and for the world we want for our grandchildren. So I want to give you a couple of examples, on like what's taking place at universities. Because what my comment before about it's hard for people to hate when they know each other and they see each other. I got involved with a program in Atlanta that brought Black and Jewish students together. They went to a lynching museum and they went to a Jewish museum. They shared music. They shared food. They had fun. It was their family for the time period. That changed them. You know, at Duke University, I met an imam who was actually speaking where I was speaking one time, and he created a food truck at Duke. It's kosher certified and halal compliant, and Mondays to Thursdays, the Jewish and the Muslim students come together and they eat. Friday and Saturday, it's closed for Shabbos, and on Sunday, people can rent it out for parties as long as they don't serve alcohol. Wow, bringing people together. It's working. Dartmouth, you look at all the universities who failed our kids, who failed this country, you know, recently. Dartmouth had a very strong Middle East department that worked with a very strong Jewish department. They have integrated into their curriculum education around the Holocaust, around the issues that exist today. And when October 7th happened, those Jewish students on that campus felt safe. People came together. The campus supported them. So yeah, government can do a lot. Government can fund education in the public schools to give kids history. And by the way, the government is failing our kids on every aspect of education. So we don't need to take all of that up now. But
We agree.
Yeah, I mean, okay. But, you know, we can make a difference. You know, right now, when we talk about universities, you know, to me, I talk about the lack of moral leadership at universities. I talk about people not having a strong enough backbone to do what's right. You know, we talk about, you know, unequivocal condemnation of anti-Semitism. We talk about needing to take action quickly, needing accountability. But how about if we talk about education? How about if we talk about these universities instead of dealing with all the divisiveness that exists on campus? How about they do some programming to bring, you know, different people together? They come up with ideas as to how we can bring people together to talk about what we have in common, not about what divides us. How about if they create a curriculum when students enter the university that gives them historical perspective, that talks about some of the things that we all need to know?
But given the
Do you think
folks
I'm
that
passionate
are
about this?
leading these institutions, as we've seen testify before Congress, what gives you hope that
Well,
they would ever do any of these things you're talking about?
Well, a couple of them are gone, and I think, you know, so I think that that's a good sign. And I think it's not just the universities. I just did a program at University of Florida where I brought together kids from 30 universities, and we gave them education, and we gave them resources, and they had to do a hell of a lot of reading before they were accepted into this program. And they had to commit to go back to campus and create some of these educational, you know, places where Jews could come and other people could come and we could bring people together. It was a substantive program and it was phenomenal. And I met with these kids. So you know what? We can't always rely on the leadership of these universities, but we can rely on people like all of us in these rooms who have the power to use our voices and to create programs and to bring these opportunities, you know, to these places. So, yeah, you know, in the end, I realize you can't depend on anybody else, but we can depend on ourselves. And everybody has an opportunity to make a difference. And honestly, if I didn't feel that way, I would never wake up in the morning. And by the way, one more thing. And Bob is here. And Bob, you know, the CEO of Paramount, and he knows I have a line that I always have used with my management teams from day one. And I used to say, there are those who see challenges as reasons why things can't be done. And then those who see challenges as opportunities to do it better. And we are challenged more than we have ever been challenged. But that is our opportunity to do it better. And I know we can do this, and that's why I'm here tonight. Yeah. So, thank you.
I think we could feel that. Yeah. But unfortunately, you talk about this generation being lost, and it is going to take many, many years for these ideas to take roots, and so they can change the hearts and the minds of these young people we're talking about. Let's come back, to, Ronald, to the reality of today.
Yeah.
If the civilian deaths continue in Gaza, will you ever be able to reverse this surge in anti-Semitism?
I believe that at the end of the day, Israel will be okay. I believe that there'll be a push, but at the same time, I've spent some time in the Middle East with a lot of countries. They're all waiting for the war to end so they can go and recognize Israel. You have no idea the backing, because they all hate Hamas. But also, at the same time, I guess I didn't say enough about what the World Jewish Congress is doing. We don't advertise what we're doing because we don't want to tell them what we're doing, anyone. But we have people in 450 colleges working for us now, putting together the pieces of a program, each one to fight it. The real aspect is there are many good things you can say about different places and different programs. We're talking about a whole generation. We have to be able to be all over the place. And we're fighting against social media, we're fighting against TikTok, we're fighting against all the different things. The only way to win it is by massive fighting in every possible place. And again, we have 405 people really trained what to do. And we're doing it very, very, very quietly, because we don't want to tell anybody what we're doing, and it's working. But it's not working fast enough. We've taken the big colleges, mainly the Ivy League ones, and made them showcases, and we're fighting the battle. But the real battle is going there. We also have about 50 different people going into kindergartens and seeing who's teaching what. We have people going into elementary schools and high schools. The way to do it is to do it very, very quietly. And it's very, very difficult. One of the things that I've found that basically it's very hard to raise money from Jewish people, except for diseases. Everyone knows that someone that had a disease and they give you money. But when you talk about people having money, Jewish people, it's very difficult. I'm telling it the way it is, because it used to be if you had
What
money.
you're saying kind of belies the breadth of your philanthropy, Ronald.
What?
That sort of belies the breadth of your family's philanthropy.
I think we learned a lesson. But the fact is that it used to be if you had money, you were Jewish, you first gave it to your synagogue, then to the school, then to the hospital, then to the poor people. Today, you give it to a disease, you give it to a major organization, and that publicizes it. No one publicizes if you give money to your church, to your synagogue. No one publicizes if you give money for schools. But I was speaking to Ken Langone, who is a big fundraiser for the church. He said 40 to 50% of his money comes from Jewish people. It's wonderful. I said, well, you have no idea how many Catholics give to the World Jewish Congress. He looked at me, I said, it's you. But the fact is, and I must tell you, I would love to bottle Sherry all over the place, because her enthusiasm is so much. I would love to, and she's like a crabber. The fight we're having, and I'm on the phone every night with Israel, what's going on, and also with Qatar, where the negotiations are going on, and the various places. It's going to come out. There's many different things going on at this point. Israel just went into a hospital, Al-Shifa Hospital, which they left 3 weeks ago, and after they left, all the Hamas said, hey, we can go back in. They went in, and we found like 600 people there with guns. The real question is, there's 3 more weeks that's going to be very tough. There will be a peace, probably, a peace quiet. But unless Hamas is destroyed, there will be no peace in Israel.
Or in the Middle East.
And right now, the danger that we have, and I'll be very direct. Today there was a question of the United States saying, either you stop or we stop with you. And that would be a disaster for the United States and a disaster for Israel. I think of Henry Kissinger. He said something very interesting. He said, to be America's enemy is dangerous. To be America's ally is fatal. And he means it. And if we are looking to be taking and stopping with Israel, our biggest ally, after what happened in Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other places, we are losing the entire world's belief in us. And it's so dangerous.
But don't you
way
acknowledge that that is what is driving the surge in anti-Semitism? When you look at these surveys, in large part, these young people who are against the prosecution of this war are likely to become anti-Semites, likely to hate Jews. And they say as long as civilians continue to die in Gaza, these numbers will continue to go
Yeah,
up.
and the same ones who are the young generation who was going against us in Vietnam, and they were then fell over, and a lot of them became teachers. And the real aspect is, it's a problem. We have to fight, and the war will be over. I think it'll be over in the next month or so. I can't tell you all the things I know, but the fact is that I believe that slowly but surely it will turn around about Israel. I believe that there's been several times in the past that Israel had different problems, different things going on.
Do you want to weigh in on those young people? You've seen them interviewed at these protests. You see how hardened their positions are.
I think obviously, again, I think a lot of this existed before and the war brought it out, but of course it's getting worse with that because, again, people aren't educated. You watch the news early on and, if you don't have the time to tell the story with all the facts, to give it the context, to give it historical perspective, people are misled. We need to educate kids. We need to get the message out there.
And how do you do that when we now know that young people primarily are accessing their news from social media? I mean, you have standards and practices in place at CBS News. There are very clear guidelines that we all adopt in our reporting and having two sources for this information before we ever run with a story.
And by the way, we all have some checks and balances, and yes, some organizations have it more than others, but it's really, really hard. I mean, I actually had this conversation with somebody in the company once, and when you think about the news, in 1.5 hour trying to get stories out there, you don't always have the time to give the context. You don't have the time to give the historical perspective. Sometimes I feel like if you can't do it right, we shouldn't be doing it. But these are challenges we have. Parents have to take on the responsibility on educating their kids. How, if you use social media, how can you do that responsibly? What are the sources where you can get the facts? It's really, really hard. It's not going to be an easy win. And I think you're right, it's gotten a lot worse, but it goes back to what I said. This is the opportunity we have to change it. And I think the point you're making when you talk about Kissinger is the point that we continue to make. This isn't just about anti-Semitism and hate
America.
And democracy in the world. When you talk about, the United States and its allies and what's going on now, we are living in very challenging times. All of these issues are related. We need to be that moral compass for the next generation. They're asking for it. We need to be that. We need to provide that. We need to educate them. And by the way, first of all, we need to educate ourselves, because never did I realize how much I didn't know until I felt I had to start to learn. And I'm like in the 3rd or 4th grade of what I need to know when it comes to these issues, and I kid you not. But we have to educate ourselves and educate those around us. And again, Young people, don't give up on them. You know, we have to give them these experiences that can change their lives, that can make them see the other side. And whether it's music, or whether it's sports, or whether it's entrepreneurship, we're not giving up. You're right, it's worse. That's
Wait,
the
I've
challenge.
never been told I'm right.
That's the opportunity. You can be right a lot, you know, I mean, but that's the opportunity that we have to make that difference.
What kind of job do you think, Ronald, the media is doing in covering these anti-Semitic incidents
I'd like,
as of late?
like Shari to answer that one, because she's me. I could talk about it and I can say things, but I think she should.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Sorry, Bob. I don't think they're doing a great job, but I think it's really hard to do a great job given the way the news is being delivered today. I think
That's
there's
what I'm
some
asking.
excellent reporting, you know, whether it's reporting that we've done with 60 Minutes and, you know, other organizations have done. There's some great reporting out there. But, you know, part of the problem is whenever there's a great story, the attacks on that story go more viral than the story itself. So it's really challenging. And I think one of the things, you know, that when I think about what could organizations do, we're talking about educating our kids. I think we have to really educate the people who are delivering the news, because a lot of people don't understand history, don't have the context to be able to understand what is happening with this war. And I think companies need to spend more time educating their own people so at least they understand some of the quote-unquote facts. I don't know why I have to quote-unquote facts, but I feel like I do
I guess
today.
those facts are
There are
highly
facts and
disputed today.
There are facts. But I mean, I think education is so important, but we have to start within. And I think if all of us could do a better job of educating the people who are reporting the news, trying to get the bias out of the news, trying to have, you know, you see it a lot on cable news, you see it in social media, you see it in some of the more traditional places, that people feel they need to deliver the news in a way that's going to appease the demographic that's listening to it. No, that's not what leadership is. Leadership is doing what's right, is telling the truth, is telling the stories the way they exist. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to serve your demographic, and that's what's going to serve the country. So I don't give them a high grade, but I think it's really challenging times and it's really hard, but I do see a path. More education for everybody before they're even allowed to get on the news, and then keep informed and look at multiple sources. So a mediocre grade. I'm sorry.
Ronald, you expressed your hope that the war might be over in 3 weeks. You're privy to information that some of us aren't privy to. Do you really think, depending on how that peace is created, that is going to fundamentally change these rising statistics of anti-Semitism?
It won't change, but it would take it out of the news. By that I mean, I've learned enough about TV and all the other things, is that when a story dies, it's quiet. And once there is quietness, and once there is no war, there's nothing to write about. And when that happens, it goes to something else. And I believe that's it. I think the question is, it's not that they're ignorant, the various people. They're not ignorant, they're smart as hell. And they know exactly what they're supposed to say. And these people are not going to change because you tell them the truth. The truth is not the key thing. The truth is what's something that we wish there were. These people are doing it for ratings. And you don't get ratings by telling them how wonderful Israel is. You get ratings to tell them how many people died of starvation.
I don't disagree with you. And I always say, at best, they're uneducated. At worst, it's something else. But the something else is very hard to change. The education can be changed. But I 100% agree with you. And, you know, we see that all the time.
Yeah.
I want to give you both the opportunity for a closing thought. I know you said at the beginning you're here because in spite of all these challenges ahead that you remain hopeful. Just a final word for all of us to leave here.
Well, I will leave you with hope. You know, Judaism is actually known as a religion of hope. You know, in the Torah, we read about slaves freed. We read about oppressors overcome. We read about living in a world that's governed by the rule of law. You know, Hatikva, our national anthem, is the hope. I have a lot of hope, but never has it been more important not to be silent, not to be indifferent. And I always, whenever I speak, I say I have a call to action. So I will leave all of you with a call to action. Know that you can have an impact. Know that you can make a difference. It can be at home with your kids, it can be with your friends, it can be dinner conversations, it can be platforms, it can be programs you start in universities. If we want to have hope, not just to fight anti-Semitism, but to create the world that we want to live in, we have to act, and we have to take that responsibility seriously. So that's what I would leave all of you with.
I'm not a believer in hope. I'm a believer in fighting and building and going after them. As long as they know that we won't fight back, they'll take advantage. The minute we start it, the minute we call out people, the minute we send things, instantly enough, the kids at Berkeley, who are the law students, guess what? These are the ones that said no Zionists can come to the campus. They can't get jobs because you have all their names they're put out there. The 90 kids from Harvard who signed a petition against Israel, all of a sudden they say, hey, I didn't mean it. Their names are out there. There's huge numbers of kids who have lost their jobs because of this. All of a sudden, when you fight, hope is something that you hope. You hope to win the lottery. But you fight. I believe you're the only way to do it.
I have to say one more thing. I have a quick question. Do you really believe that those young people who feel that their livelihoods down the road will suddenly have less hate in their heart based on how these young people have been treated?
What they'll be is more careful of what they say and marching out there. And the question is, it will change many of them when they start to realize that they have to earn a living, and the people who want to hire them may be Jewish people, and they'll react very much differently. I believe in fighting. I believe in the World Jewish Congress as a political organization. I've been to most of these countries, and the thing that we do in most countries is we fight for what we believe in, and we win. And the minute a government sees you're willing to fight for what you believe in, they respect you. The minute you come and say, please do us a favor, they don't respect you. The only thing they respect is strength, and we have to show it to the Jewish people. Right now, we are almost in hiding. We're saying, please don't do it to us. Enough of this stuff. We have to go out and say what happens to go. We have to go after it. For example, the two of the three people who heads of schools, we got fired. And we got fired because we put enough pressure on them. All of a sudden, the schools are saying, hey, maybe it's right. And we are now going into round 2, which are the professors. I found out yesterday that 2,000 professors have signed an anti-Semitic thing. 2,000 professors in a school, which that means in most schools there's 2, 3, 4 teachers who are anti-Semitic teaching your kids what it's about. We're getting the 2,000 names, and all of a sudden they'll be published. And that's what it is. And when students realize, and teachers realize, that there's a price to pay. I have an institute at the University of Pennsylvania, and I found out the School of Arts and Sciences were mainly people who were anti-Semitic. I said, okay, none of those teachers can teach in my school, the Lauder Institute. They said, you can't tell them. I said, sure I can. And you know something? They're not teaching there, and they're all of a sudden scared. Hope is important, but It's hope to get a good job, hope to get more money, a hope to win a lottery. I don't believe in hope. I believe in standing up and fighting. And I did that when I was ambassador in Austria. Every time they attacked me, I attacked twice as hard back. All of a sudden, guess what? They stopped attacking. And you'll find that basically when people come together in a crowd, they're cowards. If they're alone, they're afraid, but they're cowards. And those people who are out there demonstrating are cowards. And I believe it. I'm probably saying the wrong thing for the thing, but I believe that we must stand up and fight back and say what we believe in. Now, if you don't believe in Israel, you don't believe in this, that, you can't win. But if you believe in what you're standing for, you will always win. And that is what made the United States so great. We are a country that stands up and fights for what we believe in. And we have to always do that. I think the United States did a great thing in some of the countries they backed. Sometimes they lost out because we didn't stay on it long enough. But I believe very strongly that we've done some great things as a country, and we can do many great things as long as there's no fear. And we can't fear them. We can't fear the anti-Semites. We can't fear them. We have to go out and fight back.
You get the last word, Shari?
I have to get the last word
You
here.
go.
Because I'm going to unite us, Ronald.
Okay, you got it.
Because when I say I believe in hope, I believe in everything Ronald just said. We have to fight. We have to stand up for what we believe in. We can't sit back and say, oh, I hope everything is lovely. That doesn't work. But I have hope because I believe that we will fight. We will stand up for what we believe in, and we will do what we have to do to make this world the world that we all want. Yeah. So we are aligned, we need to fight, and we need to have hope that we can do this. So thank you.
Thank you. Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you.